he thought, exposing the truth would bring justice. But in a city ruled by shadows, every revelation cut deeper. Every ally could be a traitor, and the real enemy was always watching from within. Jerry Carter never trusted silence. Silence had a way of pretending everything was fine while masking the ugliest truths. His entire career as an investigative journalist had been about breaking that illusion. He had taken down politicians, CEOs, and even a media mogul who thought himself untouchable. But as Jerry sat in his small downtown office that morning, replaying a cryptic voicemail, he knew this was different. The altered male voice was low, deliberate. Vanguard Industries is not what it seems. Follow the money, Jerry. You'll find Blood Vanguard Industries. The name alone was enough to make most reporters back off. A global powerhouse. Untouchable. Its reputation so clean it gleamed. Jerry had sniffed around Vanguard once or twice before, but the trails had always gone cold. This time, something in that voice told him the trail would be anything but cold by midday. Jerry stood in front of Marcus Halliday, his editor, a man whose suits were as sharp as his skepticism. Marcus didn't interrupt as Jerry laid out the anonymous message, the shell companies, the offshore accounts. When Jerry finished, Marcus leaned back, eyes narrowed. Vanguard's not a story, Jerry. It's a fortress. You're not chasing a scandal. You're walking into a buzzsaw. Jerry smiled. That same smile Marcus hated, the one that meant Jerry was already too deep to stop. Then I'll make sure the buzzsaw gets jammed. Marcus sighed, tapping a folder against his desk. If you're going down this path, you'd better come back with more than whispers. Jerry nodded. He already knew where to start. The first lead was Simon Devereux, a former accountant for Vanguard who had vanished from the corporate radar 6 months prior. He wasn't answering calls, didn't exist online, but Jerry had sources in the cities. Underground, one name kept surfacing. Simon was working off the books at a grimy club in the industrial district, a place where people went to be forgotten. The club was a pit of pulsing neon and sweat-stained shadows. Jerry found Simon hunched over a bar, scrubbing the same spot on the counter with mechanical precision. The man's eyes flickered with recognition, but his first words were a warning. If you're here about Vanguard, you're already in the crosshairs. Jerry leaned in, voice steady. Then let's make sure they hit the right target. Simon reluctantly agreed to meet the next morning at a safe location, but safe didn't exist in Jerry's line of work. As he stepped out of the club, a man was waiting. He was tall, sharply dressed, with a smile that felt like a trap. Adrian Blackwell, Vanguard's head of legal affairs. He extended a hand. Jerry didn't take it. Jerry Carter, Adrian said smoothly. Vanguard admires your tenacity. It would be a shame if it got you killed. His tone was polished, professional, but his eyes were anything but friendly. Jerry's grin was razor-thin. Threats before I've even published a word. You must be terrified. Adrian smiled, didn't falter. Not terrified, Mr. Carter, cautious. There's a difference. He stepped aside, but Jerry felt the invisible line had been drawn. This wasn't a warning. It was a declaration of war. The next morning, Simon didn't show. His phone went dark. By noon, his body surfaced in the river. Drowning, they said. Jerry knew better. Vanguard had silenced him, but Simon had left a final breadcrumb. Slipped under Jerry's apartment door that night was a flash drive. No note, just a thin piece of plastic holding potential dynamite. Jerry's hands shook as he loaded it into his laptop. The files were encrypted, but one video wasn't. It was grainy, but clear enough. A warehouse, crates marked as medical supplies. Men in Vanguard uniforms supervised as unmarked trucks were loaded, and then bogies. Gurneys wheeled out, covered in tarps to hastily thrown to hide the human shapes beneath. This wasn't financial fraud. This was human trafficking. Organized, protected, industrialized. Jerry's chest tightened. Vanguard Industries, the city's darling, was orchestrating a human cargo operation, and now he held the proof. But proof meant little without strategy. He had to dig deeper, find the cracks in Vanguard's armor. That's when Noah Mercer appeared. A former homicide detective turned pariah after trying to investigate missing persons cases linked to Vanguard. His career had been destroyed for asking the wrong questions. Now, he offered Jerry an uneasy alliance. Noah had information Jerry needed. Jerry had a platform that Noah lacked. Their methods clashed. Jerry was reckless, driven by instinct. Noah was methodical, haunted by past failures. But as they pieced together Vanguard's web of shell corporations and political puppets, a grudging respect formed. Late-night meetings bled into guarded conversations. Over shared cups of cheap diner coffee, walls came down. Jerry saw a man consumed by guilt. Noah saw a reporter willing to bleed for the truth. But closeness breeds vulnerability. One evening, as they pored over financial records in Jerry's apartment, a bullet shattered the window. Glass exploded, the report of a silenced gun echoing in their bones. They hit the floor, adrenaline surging. Vanguard's reach had found them forced into hiding. They moved between cheap motels, using burner phones and encrypted laptops. The more they uncovered, the more suffocating the city became. Friends became informants. Safe spaces turned into ambush points. Vanguard's influence was a virus, infecting every layer of society. In the middle of this storm, something shifted between Jerry and Noah. In stolen moments of calm, their guarded walls crumbled. The tension that had begun as professional friction simmered into something more intimate. A glance held too long, a touch that lingered, but romance in a war zone was a dangerous indulgence. Their final lead came in the form of Amelia Rhodes, Vanguard's ex-chief financial officer. She had been in hiding, watching as Vanguard grew bolder. Amelia had the documents, the ledgers that could obliterate Vanguard's facade, but she was terrified. She would only meet if they could guarantee her safety. Set up a meeting in a safe house far from the city's rotting core. But safety was a mirage. The moment they arrived, gunfire erupted. The walls became a hailstorm of bullets. Jerry saw Amelia drop a scarlet stain blooming across her chest. Noah yanked Jerry behind cover, their breaths sharp, their options vanished. It wasn't a scare tactic. Vanguard wanted them erased. Pinned down, with sirens wailing in the distance, Jerry realized the depth of the enemy they faced. But surrender wasn't in his blood. He grabbed Noah's arm, voice steady amidst the chaos. "We finish this. For Simon, for Amelia, for every life they've bought and sold." As they made their escape through a broken back window, Jerry felt the weight of a larger conspiracy pressing down. This wasn't just about Vanguard's greed. This was personal. And Jerry wasn't prepared for the betrayal that was coming. A betrayal that would strike from where he least expected. The rain had not stopped for 3 days. It poured over the city like a cleansing ritual, as if the sky itself was trying to wash away the rot that lay beneath its glistening skyline. Jerry Carter and Noah Mercer had taken refuge in an abandoned warehouse near the docks, a temporary haven where the cold concrete walls offered more security than the illusions of law and order outside. The air was thick with tension. Amelia Rhodes was dead. Their only insider had been silenced, and Jerry knew their window to act was closing. Fast Noah sat hunched over a table littered with papers, his brow furrowed as he traced lines between shell corporations and offshore accounts. Jerry leaned against the wall, watching him. There was a new edge to Noah, a sharpness born of guilt and frustration. They both knew Vanguard was tightening the net. Every second spent hiding was a second lost. "We need to go on the offensive," Jerry said, his voice slicing through the heavy silence. Noah looked up, his eyes dark. "We have nothing solid left, Jerry. Amelia was our last link." Jerry pushed off the wall, walking towards him. "We have her files. We have that video. Vanguard is playing a game of perception. They're betting we'll stay scared, that we'll lose momentum. We leak this to the public. We force their hand." Noah's jaw tightened. "You think the media will run it? Vanguard owns half the outlets in this city." "Not all of them," Jerry replied. "I know someone who owes me." Her name was Claire Donovan, a former colleague turned editor of an independent digital outlet. Jerry had once saved her career by exposing a smear campaign against her. He hoped that favor still had weight. The meeting was set in a quiet cafe on the city's outskirts, a place where conversations were drowned by the hum of espresso machines and the shuffle of newspapers. Claire arrived with the wary grace of someone who had learned to expect betrayal. Her eyes scanned the cafe before settling on Jerry. She sat down, folding her hands neatly. "You look like hell, Carter." I feel worse, Jerry said, sliding a flash drive across the table. But this will make you feel alive. She listened as he outlined Vanguard's crimes, her expression shifting from skepticism to calculated intrigue. Claire was no stranger to high-stakes journalism, but even she paled when Jerry showed her the footage and documents. She agreed to run the story, but with caution. They would need more than proof. They would need timing. Strategy. The plan was simple in theory: a simultaneous release of the video, financial records, and personal testimonies across multiple platforms, to overwhelm Vanguard's ability to suppress it, but theory rarely survives reality. That night, as Jerry and Noah mapped out the final details, an encrypted message pinged on Jerry's burner phone. The sender was unknown, but the message was clear. Meet me. I have what you need. Come alone. An address followed. Deep in the industrial sector. Noah was against it. It's a trap, Jerry. You're walking into their crosshairs. Jerry's gaze didn't waver. If it's a trap, I'll spring it on my terms. If it's not, it could be our last chance. Noah clenched his fists, but relented. They agreed on a silent signal protocol. If Jerry didn't check in within an hour, Noah would come looking. The address led to a derelict office building, its windows boarded up, graffiti sprawled across its facade. Jerry entered cautiously, every sense on high alert. The air inside was stale, heavy with dust and neglect. In a dimly lit room on the third floor, a figure waited. It was Adrian Blackwell. Jerry's pulse quickened. Adrian stood by a window, his silhouette sharp against the city's muted glow. He gestured to a chair. You've been persistent, Jerry. Admirable. Jerry didn't sit. Cut the theatrics. Adrian, you said you had something. Adrian's smile was a practiced mask, but there was tension beneath it. He produced a folder, placing it on a rusted table. Vanguard isn't a monolith, Adrian began. It's a machine, and machines have operators. Some of us are just cogs. Disposable, replaceable. Jerry's skepticism was palpable. You're saying you're a victim now? I'm saying there's a faction within Vanguard that's grown ambitious. They've crossed lines even I wouldn't. The folder contained documents, internal memos, transaction records linking Vanguard executives to a covert human trafficking ring operating under the guise of humanitarian aid. Names, dates, locations, the kind of evidence that could dismantle an empire. Why give me this? Jerry asked. Adrian's gaze was icy. Because there are worse players than me, Jerry, and because I know you'll burn it all down. Jerry left with the folder, his mind a storm of conflicting thoughts. Adrian's motives were murky, but the information was undeniable. Back at the warehouse, Noah's relief was tempered by suspicion. They both knew this wasn't charity. Adrian had his reasons. With Claire's network primed and the evidence in hand, the operation moved into its final phase. The release was scheduled for dawn, a coordinated blitz across independent media outlets, social platforms, and whistleblower forums. But Vanguard wasn't idle. Hours before the release, their systems were hit with a sudden attack. Files corrupted, communication lines severed. Someone inside Vanguard was desperately trying to prevent the leak. But Jerry had anticipated this. He had created redundancies, encrypted backups, stored off-grid. As dawn broke, the story went live. A city awoke to headlines that shattered illusions. Video footage flooded social media, documents circulated through underground channels. Vanguard's pristine facade crumbled as the public's outrage ignited, but victory came at a cost. In the aftermath of the leak, Jerry and Noah found themselves targeted, their faces splashed across wanted bulletins, their names smeared as domestic terrorists orchestrating false narratives. Friends distanced themselves. Claire's office was red-hot amidst the chaos. Support surged from unexpected places. Whistleblowers, emboldened by Jerry's defiance, stepped forward. Protests erupted. Vanguard's stock plummeted, but the real enemy was yet to reveal itself. One evening, as Jerry and Noah strategized their next move, a message arrived. A simple line that froze Jerry's blood. You've exposed the surface, Jerry. Now let's see if you're ready for what lies beneath. The sender's identity was hidden, but the implication was clear. Vanguard was only the beginning. and Jerry's crusade had just crossed into a darker battlefield. The city had erupted into chaos. Protests clogged the streets, their chants echoing through the glass towers of Vanguard Industries, now a symbol of betrayal and human suffering. Jerry Carter watched from the shadows of a crumbling rooftop, his heart a mix of defiance and dread. The leak had done its job. Vanguard's immaculate reputation was in ruins. But as the crowd's fury intensified, Jerry knew this was not the endgame. This was the calm before a darker storm. Noah Mercer stood beside him, his face hardened by exhaustion, but his eyes alive with purpose. Their victory had come at a steep price. They were fugitives now, hunted not just by Vanguard but by law enforcement compromised by the corporate giant's far-reaching influence. Yet, amidst the danger, a bond had been forged between them, stronger than either had anticipated. In the sleepless nights and desperate escapes, their partnership had evolved into something deeply personal, but vulnerability in their world was a luxury they couldn't afford. Not now. Their safe houses had dwindled. Surveillance tightened around every known ally. Claire Donovan had gone dark after her office was raided, her fate unknown. The city was no longer a battleground. It was a trap. Then came the message, an encrypted email. Anonymous sender. 3 words that chilled Jerry to his core. They know Noah. The implications were immediate. Vanguard had shifted its strategy. Noah wasn't just a target. He was a pawn in a larger game Jerry hadn't yet understood. Their enemy was peeling back layers, exploiting weaknesses Jerry didn't even know existed. Noah's reaction was a clenched jaw, a simmering rage beneath his calm exterior. They want to isolate you, Jerry, make you doubt everyone. But doubt had already crept in later that night. As they hid within the labyrinth of an abandoned subway station, Jerry confronted Noah. What haven't you told me? Noah's silence was a confirmation Jerry wasn't ready for. There's a faction inside Vanguard, Noah began, his voice taut. One that doesn't operate through boardrooms and legal loopholes. They handle the shadows, the cover-ups. Years ago, I was approached by them. Jerry's fists clenched. You worked for them? No, Noah said sharply. But I didn't expose them either. They offered me a deal to look the other way. I was weak. I hesitated. My silence cost lives. The weight of Noah's confession hit hard. Jerry wanted to believe in their alliance, in the bond they had built amidst the chaos. But trust was a fragile currency in their world before Jerry could respond. An explosion rocked the station. Dust and debris rained down as armed figures stormed in. Vanguard's mercenaries? The trap had been sprung. Jerry and Noah fought their way through the collapsing tunnels, gunfire echoing off the ancient walls. Amidst the chaos, a bullet grazed Jerry's arm, searing pain that fueled his desperation. They emerged into a drainage canal, lungs burning, adrenaline overriding exhaustion. By the time they reached the outskirts of the city, their world had shrunk to the confines of a stolen vehicle and a dwindling list of safe contacts. But amidst the wreckage, a new opportunity surfaced. A contact from Jerry's past. Evelyn Drake, a former intelligence analyst turned rogue operator, reached out. She had intercepted communications suggesting a major transfer of Vanguard's covert operations offshore. It was a last-ditch effort by Vanguard's shadow faction to erase their tracks and relocate their empire beyond reach. The window to act was razor-thin. Evelyn offered them a plan. Infiltrate the transfer hub, extract the master ledger, record of Vanguard's darkest transactions. With it, they could expose the entire shadow faction, severing Vanguard's power at its root. The location was a private airstrip on the edge of the city, heavily fortified, a fortress masquerading as a logistics hub. The infiltration was surgical. Disguises, forged credentials, and the sheer audacity of walking into the lion's den. Jerry and Noah moved through the compound with precision, their every step a defiance of the odds stacked against them. They reached the control center, where the master ledger was stored, only to find Adrian Blackwell waiting. Adrian's smile was a mix of admiration and resignation. You never did know when to quit, Jerry. What's the play here, Adrian? You hand us breadcrumbs, then set the wolves on us. Adrian's expression shifted, the facade cracking. I gave you the tools to dismantle Vanguard's facade, but the faction pulling the strings isn't Vanguard anymore. They've outgrown it. I want out. Jerry, and you're my ticket. The standoff was electric. Adrian had the access codes. Jerry had the leverage. In a tense exchange, an uneasy alliance was formed. With Adrian's help, they secured the master ledger, a trove of damning evidence that would obliterate the shadow faction, but betrayal was a persistent ghost as they made their escape. Evelyn. Drake ambushed them, weapon drawn. Her contact had been a ploy, orchestrated by the faction to lead Jerry and Noah into a controlled burn, but Evelyn's gambit faltered when Noah intervened. Disarming her with a mix of tactical precision and raw emotion, Evelyn's final words, before fleeing, echoed in Jerry's mind. You think you've won. You've only shattered a mirror. The reflections remain. With the ledger in hand, Jerry and Noah vanished into the city's fractured underbelly. The public release of the ledger would be catastrophic for Vanguard's faction. But Jerry knew the war wasn't over that night. Amidst the sterile flicker of motel room lights, Jerry confronted the emotional wreckage left in the wake of their crusade. Noah sat across from him, his gaze unguarded for the first time in weeks. You think we'll ever be more than ghosts? Jerry, Noah asked. The weight of his question hanging heavy. Jerry's answer was a quiet conviction. If we burn the right bridges, maybe we won't have to be. But as sleep evaded them, a silent realization settled in. The real betrayal had yet to reveal itself. And when it did, it would strike from within. The city had changed. It no longer whispered its secrets. It screamed them from every shattered screen and bloodied street corner. The public release of the master ledger had ignited a firestorm. Vanguard's shadow faction was exposed, their crimes etched into the digital consciousness of a world that could no longer look away. But for Jerry, Carter, and Noah Mercer, the victory was bitter. The ledger's revelations had painted targets. On their backs, larger than ever before, they had become phantoms, navigating a city that once cheered for their defiance, but now watched in uneasy silence. Every alleyway felt like a trap. Every flickering streetlight is a spotlight waiting to reveal its hiding place. Yet amidst the isolation, their bond had only deepened. It wasn't forged in stolen glances or whispered promises. It was carved into the bruises and scars they shared. Then came the final message, a burner phone, left on the hood of a car they'd never seen before. The screen flashed a single address and a time. No sender, no words. But Jerry knew. This was it, the end game. Noah's eyes met his, unspoken understanding passing between them. They wouldn't run. They wouldn't hide. They would finish it. The address led them to a secluded manor on the outskirts of the city. A relic of opulence, its marble facade now stained with the filth of the empire it had harbored. As they approached, Jerry's pulse was steady. The fear had burned away, leaving only a cold determination inside. The manor was eerily quiet, luxurious. Halls stood abandoned, dust motes swirling in shafts of pale light. But the stillness was a facade. They were being watched in the grand atrium. They found him, Victor Holloway. He wasn't a name Jerry had expected. He wasn't an executive, nor a public face of Vanguard. He was a ghost, a myth whispered in Batrams. The true architect of the shadow faction. Victor was calm, seated in a high-backed chair, as if awaiting old friends. Jerry, Noah, you've been impressive, disruptive, but this is where the narrative ends. Jerry's fists curled. It's not your story to end, Victor. Victor's smile was thin. Every revolution needs a martyr. You've played your roles admirably. From the shadows, armed men emerged, but Jerry and Noah had anticipated. This, a flashbang rolled across the marble floor, detonating in a burst of light and sound. Chaos erupted. The fight was brutal. Close quarters, desperate. Jerry moved with a precision born of necessity, his every strike a refusal to be silenced. Noah fought with a fury that blurred the line between survival and retribution. When the smoke cleared, Victor remained unscathed, applauding slowly. You think this changes anything? Victor's voice was venomous. Vanguard is a hydra. Cut one head, two will rise. But Jerry wasn't here for a symbolic victory. He pulled a device from his pocket, a transmitter linked to a live broadcast. Every word, Every revelation streamed to millions. Victor's composure faltered. This is the truth, Victor, raw and unfiltered. And it's not yours to bury anymore. Victor lunged, but Noah intercepted, pinning him against the cold marble. Sirens wailed in the distance. The reality settled. The house of cards had collapsed, but betrayal had one final twist in the aftermath. As authorities stormed the manor, Adrian Blackwell appeared, not as a prisoner, but as a consultant. His betrayal wasn't in his actions, but in his inaction. He had orchestrated the fall of Victor's faction, positioning himself as the savior of Vanguard's reformation. Jerry confronted him. Amidst the chaos, you played us. Jerry spat, fury boiling. Adrian's smile was unapologetic. I gave you what you needed. In return, I took what I wanted. Balance, Jerry. It's the currency of power. But Jerry wasn't finished. The live feed had captured Adrian's confession. The world had seen his true face in the days that followed. Vanguard crumbled. Lawsuits, arrests, public outcry. But for Jerry and Noah, victory was not a celebration. It was a quiet exhale, a moment of clarity. Amidst the wreckage, they stood on the edge of the city, watching the skyline shift under the weight of change. Noah broke the silence. Do you think it'll ever end? Jerry's gaze was resolute. Not while someone is willing to chase the truth. Their hands found each other, not in triumph, but in solidarity. The storm had passed, but the scars remained, and in those scars, Jerry Carter found purpose. The truth was never the end. It was only the beginning.